Okay, so these are my language books on my shelf that are have to do with language, either like academic linguistics or books on learning languages or how to write. So this is Metaphors We Live by George Lakoff. I recommended this to a lot of people. It's a super good book. It has a very unique approach to language and cognition in general. Steven Pinker, Words and Rules. I didn't enjoy the book that much, but I'm a big Steven Pinker fan. So, stylish academic writing. This is a very good book, especially if you're an academic. It talks about how academics are actually very terrible writers. They abuse abstraction too much. They use the words like is, the, so way too often in their writing. And they abuse gerunds. The Language Instinct, another Steven Pinker book. This was a super fun read. I read this when I was in college. When I was first getting introduced to evolutionary psychology, Pinker gives all the language arguments for an evolving mind. So it's a very good book. The Cambridge Handbook of Psycholinguistics. Not much to say about this. It's very systematic, kind of, here are the main concepts in psycholinguistics approach, here's the evidence for them. Just like every other Cambridge book, or Cambridge Handbook. Clear and Simple as Truth. I got this from reading another Steven Pinker book. This book talks about using classical prose as a way to write, so being very rich in metaphor, and describing the world concretely. Instead of using abstract notions, like if you're going to talk about complex systems, maybe use a lot of analogies to cars instead of using words like causal variable or something. Babel, Around the World in 20 Languages. I haven't read this one yet. There's another one I have here. I believe it's just exploring the different languages and their superficial properties. I don't think it's too deep into their grammar. Just maybe like their phonetics, and that's about it. Maybe a little bit about the culture as well, I don't know. This is a college textbook. I think it was actually very useful. I didn't read all the way through, but there's a lot of interesting ideas about paragraph structures, like explanatory paragraphs, comparison and contrast paragraphs, causation paragraphs. I don't think about this stuff consciously anymore, but when I was learning to write, I thought that was a cool tool. The Cognitive Linguistics Basic Readings. This is a good book, especially the George Lakoff essay in here. I haven't found this essay in any of his other books. Other besides, there was another book that he had that was in there, but very cool concepts in here, especially if you have a background in philosophy of language. This book will be very revolutionary for you. So, yeah, this is a fun book. Steven Pinker, A Sense of Style. This is the writing book I was talking about that gave me the reference to the other writing book. This is a very fun book. It actually, I think the book should be better, more accurately described as How to Write Like Steven Pinker, because Steven Pinker writes like a machine, in my opinion. He's very like logical, and it's very hard to explain, but like a machine is a good metaphor here. And this book is very syntax focused, so it's going to teach you how to use the syntax of English very properly. First to Write a Sentence. I bought this book somewhere in a bookstore. I haven't read it yet, but I thought it was cool, like the concept. I'm pretty sure it's just about writing and writing a book, or writing an essay, or just like the process of writing. And it seemed like a short little fun read. Steven Pinker, The Stuff of Thought. This is his psycholinguistics book, General Read Psycholinguistics. This is a fun book. I was just getting introduced to, I think this is one of the first Steven Pinker books I've read. I was just getting introduced to psycholinguistics when I first read this, and I remember it being a good book. Philosophy in the Flesh, The Embodied Mind and Its Challenge to Western Thought. Again, this is George Lakoff's kind of like masterpiece. If you've read one George Lakoff book, you've read them all, but if you have to read one George Lakoff book, I'd recommend this one. It takes all of the books and puts them together. There are some variances between the books, but most of the ideas, if not all of them, are in this book. This is his best work. It's very big as well. Translation methods. So I'm learning Turkish, and I wanted a book that was going to go through exercises for translating Turkish and English sentences more towards the end when I'm finally like familiar with Turkish, and so that's why I got this book. Latin, The Story of a World Language. This is a fun book. The ideas in here were really cool, but it can get a bit repetitive and it can kind of lose its sense of linearity. Sometimes it seems like it's going off into another direction, but overall the book was fun. George Lakoff, Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things. This is his book on categories and his radial structure idea. Again, if you've read one George Lakoff book, you've read them all. So this book I found was actually more similar to Metaphors We Live By than it was to Embodied in the Philosophy in the Flesh. But it's a good book. How to Write a Thesis. I haven't read this yet, but I think it was something I was going to read in university because it seems small, and I feel like it would be like a better way to just get some ideas about getting evidence and sources. I'll probably still read it, but it's not high up there on my to-read list. The Writing Life. I think this is a book about the life of writing, like what you do every day, and I thought it was written really poetically, and so that kind of sold me on it. Haven't read it yet though. The Art of NonFiction by Ayn Rand. This book is it's a good book, and there's a lot of interesting ideas in here. I don't agree with everything she said in here, but yeah, I recommend people read this book if you want to learn about writing. Elements of Style, obviously a famous style book for writing. Not much to say about that. And the last one, Lingo, A Language Spotter's Guide to Europe. I think this is just going to be more like the same as the other book, but this time more focused on European languages. I haven't read it yet though. So those are some of my linguistics books, some of my language books. With that being said, ciao.